Hello and welcome. My name is Lauren, and this is my AAC React Final Project app brought to you by Build Carolina. I am a speech language pathologist by trade and a budding software developer. In this presentation, you will learn more about AAC, otherwise known as Augmentative and Alternative Communication. You will have an introduction to my final project, learn about the inspiration behind the final project. You will have a demo of the keyboard, the symbol board, and some other features. You will hear about the lessons learned, have the ability to contact me with questions, and I can respond to those questions via email or just leave me some comments about what you see in this presentation. Everyone communicates in different ways. Most people use their voice, and that voice can be different for people who are in need of a device of some sort, or maybe they need to use a different way of speaking, communicating their thoughts. So when we say augmentative, we are talking about anything that adds to spoken words. When we say alternative, it is anything that is used to communicate besides speech. So think about the person who is unable to hear themselves when they speak. They have both sides of their ears with hearing loss or bilateral hearing loss, and that person now needs to use sign language in order to communicate, or prefers sign language to communicate. Communication is the ability to exchange thoughts and ideas. So think of that person that you have not seen in a very long time. Typically, you and that person would greet each other and explain how things have been since you've last seen each other. So this is the exchange of ideas that I'm referring to when I say communication. Who uses AAC? The person watching this presentation can use AAC. Anyone across the age spectrum can use AAC. Someone who typically uses this form of communication is someone who has a diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder and is known to be nonverbal, a person who has cerebral palsy, or a person who has suffered a stroke. So what are some forms of AAC? You can use no tech, which would be sign language, which was what I mentioned before, writing or drawing. Low tech, which could be looking at a picture and pointing to it. Or high tech, which you will see today, where the computer generates the speech. And in this case, the computer is using what's known as API in order to generate that speech on the device. Who is the intended audience for my React app? Well, before I speak about my intended audience, I need to speak about the inspiration. When I was a 9-year-old child, my grandmother suffered a grand mal stroke. She was only able to really use her fingertips on her right hand and just her right hand. So I kept thinking as a child, it would be so much easier for her if she could point to what she wanted or needed so that we could help her a little bit better and care. This is a picture of my grandmother when she was well with me as a baby. So we have a keyboard as our demo first up. Our intended audience would be someone who's a retired adult who has suffered with a stroke that impaired or a lesion on the right side of that person's brain. Now, this person was right-handed or is still right-handed, but that left side of their body is now unable to move like it used to. They have what's known as hemiplegia, or to not be able to move very much on that left side. So let's take a look at the keyboard. So let's say this person is out and about in the community and this person is not able to say their address, but they're lost. So maybe they can say that they live at 100 Landing.
100 Landing.
Or perhaps this person wants to have a conversation with a friend and tell that person,
hello.
or maybe they are talking to someone who asked them a yes no question and now they want to say, oh, wait a minute, we made a mistake, we need to delete that J.
No.
They want to tell the person no. So this is a great way for someone to have their voice back who has suffered from a stroke. So now let's take a look at some more people who would benefit from this type of app. We have a symbol page, and our target audience here would be an 8-year-old child who is nonverbal with a diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder. This child is learning to use the restroom, enjoy swimming and burgers. This child also lives in a home where the family code switches or uses the Gullah dialect within the home. So now let's see what this looks like for that child to have an AAC app that functions for them in more than one setting. So let's say that this child is at a restaurant and wants
burger
with
drink. Burger drink.
So we have a few of the words here. We can also add some more words too. We can go over to the settings page and add something. Okay, so now we want to close out that window. We don't have anything to add. We do want to have a conversation with family at the function that's going to happen. So let's say at the family function, you want to greet others.
Hello.
And we can speak that out.
Hello.
Let's say that they have food that you really want. Now you can use
Hop and John.
and
Hop and John.
ask for that. Or let's say that this child is now going to be the DJ and the child can play some gospel music with their device. You have YouTube here. Some other things to note is that you can also reach the settings from the dialect page. And you can also go over to symbol search. There are a few symbols to search for if you wanted to add them to a separate board. So they are there. So now, some wins that I've had with this app was that when I previewed the app, it worked as intended. It came out the way that I imagined, and I have a Figma design right here that shows exactly how I wanted it to look, and just to get an idea of what it should do. If given a little bit more time, I would like to be able to have a setting where numerous voices could be represented or recorded for the user's device. Increase the variety of icons present using API instead of me just having them there on the page for you to search. Having a variety of skin tones as an option for icons. Have a way to connect to a kid-friendly YouTube or game for the child to have time from talking, because sometimes it can be overwhelming or time-consuming or just tiresome for a child to constantly point to that symbol to communicate. I would also like to look at features of accessing the device in Zoom or Google Meet, as many speech language pathologists and occupational therapists would use a device in order to communicate with their patients who are nonverbal. They still need to have a break, and maybe this could be a way of letting the therapist know that there's time that this is too tiresome for them. They need a break. They can't do anymore. They need a 5 minute something of bubbles or watching a video to get away from the task that's there, or just to be able to participate in their care and answer something like what questions about a book. I would also like to create a setting to change the icon overlay. So this was the presentation that I have, but it's not an opportunity for the person listening and watching this video to ask me questions in real time. You can go ahead and email me if you had any questions. You can also take a look at my repo here in GitHub. You can see my README doc. You can see my code. Okay. I'll just give you a very quick look over what features were here inside of the app. I had a main.jsx, which was how I was able to navigate to different parts of the board. These are routes. You can see my nav bars here. I'm still working on my API for symbols so that you can search from opensymbols.org. You can see my keyboard where I was able to use arrays and be able to select the numbers and letters. You can see my app.jsx where you can see the dialect of Gullah here represented. You can also see the symbol search is where I was able to have, local symbol search was where I was able to have the pictures that you could see red and blue and the cup. So these are some of the features that are represented here. I also have a link to my Figma so that you can see what I had in mind, and which came out way better using React. I also want to just say to the person who is viewing this presentation, thank you so much for taking the time to view my presentation through Build Carolina. Thank you to all of my instructors, including Sean, Alana, and Chris, for taking the time to show me how to create these types of dynamic features and helping me to bring this presentation to you. Thank you and have a wonderful day.